Okay. So we're going to begin, and so the ringer, as people begin to add on that or enter, the ringer is off. Yes, we're not going to be ding 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 ding. Okay. Oh, let me see everybody. Okay. Okay. I aloha no kako pehea. Oh, that looks like my cousin Lena. Oh God. Oh Lord. Okay. Nice to have all of you guys join us. My name is Taupori Tangaro. And if Gail Makua Kane London, can you raise your hand over there? That's Gail over there. And then there's Noel Tagab Cruz. Noel, raise your hand. Both of them, together with myself, and the programs we represent from Hawaii Community College and the University of Hawaii at Hilo, we three of us have put this Mōkaulele series together. Mōkaulele is it honors the hook of Maui, and I would love to have some time in the future to share that with you. What does that have to do with what we're doing
Join
today?
the meeting.
But Mōkaulele, we want to say thank you for biting the hook. It's actually a welcome. Thank you for biting the hook. You never let the hook pass you. We use the arts to enter into a discussion that allows our spirits to come forward, a discussion that brings our personal stories forward into the things that we do. And Gail and Noel and myself and a whole number of people within the University of Hawaii, we're doing this in different ways. How can we look into the value systems and the knowledge systems of Hawaii, and how can that contribute to the advancement of Indigenous leaders in our community through academia, through cultural practices, through being parents, and through just being here in Hawaii. Again, we use the arts, and the first hour of Mōkaulele, we're going to have the artists share their story, because oftentimes we want to get straight to the art, and we totally miss out on the story. What makes the art wonderful is that storyline. And so, so that's the first hour. This runs for an hour. So if you want to stay for the second hour, that's optional. All of this is optional, but you're welcome to stay, because that's when we're going to be showing images of some of his work, some of his family, and see how those images trigger more stories. We want you to leave asking this question: where's my story? How's my story? Where is my story? Have I left my story? Am I living my story? Am I living somebody else's story? And stories can commingle. That's not a problem. But it's when you wake up in your 40s and you go, oh my, I've just spent a huge part of my life living somebody else's narrative. Okay, so we want to nip that. We want to bring our stories forward. And so, without any further ado, I had been following this gentleman for a while, and I know his teacher. His teacher and I dance on the same hula stage, different halaus at different times, and I didn't really meet Makua, and I was a little bit intimidated. You think, oh, Tangaro, intimidated, but yes, I am. And I told my wife, Kekui, you know him? How him? You got to check him out first. But I never like to go introduce myself. Aloha, Keli'i, Ovao Tangaro, and Kekui's my wife. And kind of lame, yeah, you got to drop your wife's name just to get a conversation going. And how embarrassing. He says, oh, I've been following you for years. I've known you for years. It's a little bit embarrassing, but it shows you a cultural value of ours. We don't assume that people know us. We always assume that they may not know us. And so I want to introduce you folks to our Keli'i Makua and Keliʻiokalani Makua. And he's going to be talking to us about him and his journey, and how cacao and that world of uhi contributes to his life and to his purpose. So, Keliʻi, aloha, and Keliʻi's wife Sunny's somewhere over there. Aloha, Keliʻi.
She's drinking ava.
She's drinking ava. Okay, everybody, this is Keliʻi.
Aloha, man. Nice to see you, brother. Hey, what?
Yeah.
Different, small kite trim up, yeah.
Yeah. Gotta trim up. Yeah, the Zoom touch up can only do so much.
Right,
The rest you gotta do them yourself. Keliʻi, so audience, what we're gonna do is in the university, the university is undergoing a transformation in our philosophy, how we think and how we act. We're getting beyond just studying indigenous peoples and getting degrees on studying, the brownie. Or the whitey, because indigenous is all kind of forms now, yeah. The yellow, we get all kind of indigenous. And it was okay for academia to study them, but now we're saying, oh no, we're beyond studying. We have bigger things we can offer the university system on how to work with each other, how to work with the land, how to bridge science and culture, which seems to be a very sensitive area, how to look at equity and how to bring equity into it. And so the university has a strategic imperative, which is called Hawaii Papokeao. It's our commitment to indigenize. And so we use this framework of indigenize. We mean to transform how we think and how we act and how we and the outcomes of the university system to better affect the well-being of our community. And so we use this framework we call the ka'au. It's a framework that comes from mythology. And I sort of created this based off of the story of Hi'iaka. There are 4 areas. We do know that Hi'iaka now is a huge deity for healing and forest restoration. In fact, around the world, if you dance hula kahiko, you know the name Hi'iaka, because usually at the end of these dances we say, "Hey, noa no Hi'iaka i ka poli o pele." So she's a biggie. Okay, so we know her, and then we're working backwards. She had a huge journey that took her from just being regular into deity. And then there was a trigger, that something in her family triggered that journey. But then before that, she was born. There was things that she was born with, her DNA, her trait systems, her characters were born with, and they were conditioned. So we call that domestic, that formative years, the hua. And then the point in which she began her journey, what happened that caused her to journey? That's the ha'alele. And then her journey itself, when she went from Hawaii to Kauai to go get lohi'au, and then the bagawa's dead, and she had to do her magic to bring him back, and a little bit delayed, but the bagawa was alive when he came. And then as a result of her journey, what is Hi'iaka to us today? So within that framework, I want to ask you, Keliʻi, we know you're doing this now, and the title that you have, although you can explain that to us, but we know that you are doing the work of kakau or kauhi and all, but can you share us what was your rearing like that sort of that pointed you in this direction? So can you share with us your story about your domestic life as a child?
I think my story is pretty plain. Honestly, I think it's pretty regular. My dad is from Denver, English German background. On his mom's side, he's the first to be born in America, or first generation born in America from the mom's side. She migrated in from Europe. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. And so she migrated in from Europe at a little, she was like 3 years old. Born in Austria, went up through Poland, entered into that North Sea, came underneath to Texas, entered in Galveston. When she grew up, she met my grandfather, and he was first generation born in America on his dad's side from Germany, that when came to America, married into English family. So English German, from both grandma's side and grandpa's side on my dad's side. Dad came here to Hawaii in 1960. Um, Ended up being with the Navy, and eventually met my mom. And you know how that happens, sparks fly, right? Um, and it was interesting because my mom's family was not, or that particular part of my mom's family wasn't real open to outside or outsiders. Where we come from on Hawaii Island specifically is a Hawaiian community, and it's everybody in that area at that time frame was real old style manaleo. My mom was raised by her grandparents. Um, they're from the late 1800s. Everybody was manaleo, just different. So then meeting my dad, grandma was like, "Wait, blue eye, blonde hair, what's up with that?" Right? Um, but one of the thing was that it, that time frame, everybody where we're from is family to one another. So it's kind of one of those ideas that you can't marry family, you can't marry back. So she ended up, looking and saw something different that caught the eye. But she did finish her high school here in on Oahu, and eventually, sister, brother, and me came. We're all 1 year apart. We went back to the continent, and we all my school, everything is was in a continent. But the thing for me was, I guess maybe because I was the youngest, um, I just was. Some people call it mama's boy, but I had a good relationship with my mom. I had a great relationship with my dad, good relationship like that, or great with my mom. Um, Unfortunately, they didn't stick together. They ended up getting divorced, and so it's kind of typical of that time frame. Early 70s, things happen. Single parent, mom and dad always lived close to one another, and so one thing I really noticed that was different. I couldn't read, bro. Kid days, going to elementary, I could not read. I was in special ed. I am so dyslexic. It's crazy stupid. And part of that is I don't my brain doesn't learn through sitting and reading in a book. Mine is absolutely the way my mom was raised, makana kaike. So it's just busy, busy, and doing that, busy your hands, and you pick up and you learn by watching and doing, and that's absolutely the way I learned. So for the first several years in grade school, I was in special ed. I think it was the third grade. I remember my teacher was asking me about my family, and it was the world events at that time frame was about the Pope John Paul III. And here's this little boy, third grade, that knows about this guy. Why did I know about this guy? Because not only because he was in current events, but my family is very religious, and not just religious in a spiritual way or a Christian way, but we recognize. And so with that thought in mind, um, I was the only one in class that could speak out on that. And so she's asking, okay, so tell us about yourself. Who's your family? Where you from? And I spoke about that, and nobody knew what was Hawaiian. I kid you not, nobody knew. They all thought I was Mexican because I was a little bit tan, a little bit, as I've aged, definitely my eyes are not as dark as they used to be. My hair is definitely not, well, I'm getting gray, but the idea was when I was young, I was a little bit more tan, darker eyes, darker hair. I was Ehu in the sun. Kapanga just turned real Ehu. My mom's family is Ehu lines. And she carries after that. And that's that Kona, that South Kona side. On her dad's side, we come from Kalapana. And on that side of the family, her dad had Ehu lines, but also had the Keakea lines, where they're fair, more fair with the black, jet black hair. And so my grandfather was a little bit more on that side. Um, it was interesting. We could speak of certain things in school and people never understand. They never know. And the teacher's like, oh, so tell us about this. Everybody thought we lived in grass huts. And I was just scratching my head going, wow, talk about ignorant. Um, So I did have a different worldly view, being from that. At my dad's side, we get all the family gatherings. You get all the blonde family, and then you get the dark family, mixed in. So it was cool. It was interesting. I never knew that we were different till I think it was about fifth grade maybe. I went with my friend. He invited me to go to YMCA. He invited me to go YMCA, and they had games and stuff going on. It was a summer program, and I'd never been involved with that. I don't know about YMCA, so I was like, okay, cool. He goes, pack your lunch, make a sack lunch. I was okay, because that's what we did. Kid days, you make sandwich, whatever. Get soda. You put the paper towel around and wrap them in a foil, put them in your bag, and you're ready to hele, right? So I bring, and it just so happened to be time for ice. So we was eating, and we get like half of the can gone, and then my friend says, "How much you get left?" I said, "About half." He goes, "You want to race?" Okay, let's race. Boop, 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 boop. We just chug them, right? So we chugging them, and then when you're done, because it's bubbly water, right? It's gonna make you burp. So we both of us we burped. I burped. I covered my mouth with my hand, only not like this, but kind of like this. And a boy walked by, bigger boy, blonde boy. He walked by and he called me a dirty Mexican. And I'm looking around like, who's this guy talking about? I'm looking behind me, and I was like, nobody behind me. And started to stand up. And my friend said, "Don't. This boy wrestle. He does this. He does things. So just let it go. It's okay. Let it go." And I was like, "Okay, well, whatever." Um, but then I really realized that I was different. Um, when I started seeing people looking at me different because of my skin color. The cool thing for me is a lot of my class projects in elementary was all about family. So they said, talk to an older generation, interviewed them, what life was about, you name it, meh, meh, meh. And I talked to my great auntie, Auntie Ruby, is my two ladies' younger cousin, youngest sister. And right off the bat, she sent me some books talking about Hawaii. And they were real plain kind of common book. And it wasn't really our story. Um, so, it was something. Um, what you call it. With that, I did genealogy, and I put down maybe 8 or 9 generations of genealogy. Um, but the family knew these things, so it was easy for me. So I gave them my family tree, and I submit all of this, and I always remember that because of our names. Our names are different. Now, mind you, I was born with a Haole first name and my father's last name, which is Foreman. And I'm proud of that. I'm not ashamed of that. But I did change my name. At a certain point, my family would not include me in some family discussion. And it was because I carried somebody else's name. And the idea was this name is Po'ehaole. But you're learning about Kanaka things and a Kanaka family. So you got to have a Haole keeping your tradition or standing for your family. It wasn't accepted with my family. Several of my family said, you can fix that real easy. Sign some papers, submit some papers, legalize things, boom. And, the interesting thing is when I came home after high school, um, family was real open to share. And it was by myself. I came right after high school. And I wanted to reconnect and whatnot. But at a certain point, they did hit the brakes because then we started diving into things that was very particular and very specific, and that's not things that you share on the outside. Um, and so what I saw was my family, my peers, my cousins, nobody was really doing the things that I was asking about. I was asking about particular things, and nobody of my generation was really doing anything to malama that or to keep things alive. Um, so I understood what they were looking at, that somebody needed to keep it. So, but they didn't want a George Washington keeping it. They didn't want a Mr. Smith or Mr. Green keeping it. So I just took my mom's maiden name, which was Makua. My middle name is Keliʻiokalani, named after my great-grandfather, the one that raised my mom. And he comes from a lineage from Keliʻiokalani, from Kiʻilai, Keokea, right behind Honaunau area. And that line is mixed, and it's mixed with Hana lines. It's mixed with Ka'u lines, and some other lines within South Kona, in that Ke'e area in Napo'o. So it was easy. I just took my middle name and put it to the front. When I was young, my uncle gave me a name, and I took that and put it to my middle, legally putting it on my paperwork legally. And because my front name was Todd, T-O-D-D, Todd. Do I look like a Todd? I could be, and it doesn't bother me. I don't know. Grade school, the kids, they call me Todd. Only a few people in the continent would call me Kalani or Keli'i. And it was more Kalani because they struggle with the idea of Keli'i. A lot of times it was Kali'i or Kalihi. And I'm like, no, just cut. If you can't do it, just don't do it. And, and they definitely couldn't do Keliʻiokalani. But I had a good friend, Aaron Marino, in grade school and junior high. And he would call me that. He would call me Kalani. And so that was kind of interesting. As time went by, my questions to my mom was greater and greater. And she always sang music, and her music was just unbelievable. Her voice, her leo was just beautiful, and the way she spoke was very melodic. So I just was asking questions and sentences and whatever. And little by little, I was picking up. So when I did come home after graduation, I could actually have conversation. Real small, but I can converse. And I could listen, and I could pick up what's going on and understand what's being said. So that was pretty cool. Then in the continent, I wasn't white enough. In Hawaii, I wasn't Hawaiian enough. I had, now mind you, now I have my mom's family is Hawaiian. So a lot of our cousins, even like the mixed Hawaiians one, everybody's big, everybody's brown. Everybody has that Kanaka look. And then here I am. I hold information, but I don't look like the family. So they're like, "Oh, you know Haulea from the mainland?" And I was like, "Well, at a certain point, yeah, everything was mainland, but I really resonated with the idea of continent. That's the continent. This is the mainland. We are in Hawaii. We are Hawaiian. This is our mainland." And so small things like that were really big in my mind from when I was young. And and I really understood what happened. I did submit some pictures, and I have a fifth generation grandfather, which is actually the son of the last tattooing priest of our family. And he was instrumental in, well, number one, he was a royalist. He was on the Ahali'i for Kalakaua and Keliʻiokalani. He was instrumental for bringing in Kona coffee. He didn't bring it originally, but he saw that all the haulis liked it. So then he said, "Hey guys, don't sell your land. We're gonna make something, and we're gonna have this co-op going on." And he really got Kona coffee going. And he was born in 1828. So seeing these different things of his family and what he was about was just super, super amazing to me, being on the land, walking in these different places that they walked, seeing that all of these different rock walls that our family made from the 1800s into the early 19s because of all the cattle. That was amazing to see these things. So I recognize a lot of things that my contemporaries did not recognize. So family was kind of somewhat grooming me, maybe to fall in line with family tradition.
So if I can point in this point here. So we're at he's sharing this very formative years of himself. Now, this is also very reflective in when people just come to the university system. It's almost a metaphor. You can see it that one of the first things that we do when our people come into the school system, if they already didn't get it from the school that they went to, or from the halau that they're in, or from the families. Some families still kept those things intact. Many families, they tried other ways of rearing their children. So sometimes people come to school to relearn, to reawaken, because no can forget. It all goes to sleep. So they come to school and to waken up their memories. But one of the things that we begin is with genealogy. And interestingly, we don't only put focus on the Hawaiian genealogy, but the full genealogy on both sides. Because as you're saying, you have this really nice record of them coming together. And then finally you're a product of these two coming together. And then you're sitting at the table and you said, because of your name, you got to sit on the peripheries, And so how does one negotiate the inner conflict? Because that's what we found if we don't even understand the inner conflict, we always only see the outer conflicts. And we spend our lives trying to fix the outer conflicts, but also there are inner conflicts beyond our decisions that were designed by systems, biographical systems, biological systems. And so how does one integrate it? And then you provided a really great example of how, if you wanted, because of your name, you couldn't get access, and again, we're not putting a judgment on this. This is how the family system worked. You needed to be at this table to have this discussion. You needed to identify, we need to identify with you and you with us in certain terms. And this was the name. And, and then thanks, I think you said it was your uncle or your cousin that says, well, that's an easy fix. Just go and change it. Yeah. And interestingly, by changing that name, it didn't remove his Todd. It didn't displace it. But what it did, it gave a bridge for his family to now interact in terms that was not conflicting to that family. So some of us might interpret that as, well, you got to just accept me. This is who I am, and blah, 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 blah. But and some of our students come to us with that mentality because, it's a sensitive subject. They're vulnerable. Many of them are bruised by outer systems and then the inner systems. Within families, you have gradations of color. So there's that color, the racism within the family system. And that seems to be a very big topic these days. And it's real. But what we like to do is remind our students. And in reminding our students, we remind ourselves. What does it mean when we say we have Kiniakua, we have 40,000 gods? That gives us a huge opportunity to relate to a situation 40,000 ways. If one way don't work, you have other ways. And who says we have to have one name? And sometimes it is an easy fix. And in fact, many of us have multiple names within the family. One will call you this, one will call you that. And so, but this was a beautiful example of how something that's very confusing, maybe inner chaotic, to be too white or too black, and everything everything it represents. But how do you negotiate that without compromise? And that uncle that says, this is an easy fix, change your name. And so, again, I'm just using that sometimes it's just how and when we say change our name, it doesn't necessarily mean replace it. It means to wake up we have so many names in our bodies. And my wife's grandmother she started working at Hawaii Community College, and then she later transitioned to the University of Hawaii at Hilo. There are still people in Hilo today of all Hawaiian, non-Hawaiian, walking around named by her. They came to her without Hawaiian names. But she, in her Hawaiian mind, if she needed to wake up things Hawaiian in them, she needed to relate to them in a name that would advance that. So some of the Hawaiians that didn't have Hawaiian names, she gave them Hawaiian names. some of the Haole people, the non-Hawaiians that didn't have Hawaiian names, that just lived in Hawaii all their life, knew nothing else. Well, she gave them a Hawaiian name because she's, her belief is, you live here, you got to know how to identify with things here. And if we keep calling you by a foreign name, then we may not be able to bridge that. She didn't replace the name; she just gave them also an optional name, and so that's an interesting thing. Just a number of us go through that where we outlive the name, we outlive the purpose of the name, and then but when we look at it, that's very, very, when we talk about rites of passage, people that go through rites of passage, they come back, they leave with one name, they come back with another because so much things has waken up. So that's a beautiful thing. That's something that we bring to our campuses, because many of our students come in, they think they're looking for a degree, but really they're looking to help sort their lives together. And if you find the right teacher, the right support group, the right, within the university system, and I have to promote their university system because I'm assuming that, our job, reason why I'm here is I've been charged to bridge culture and academics. We need both to grow leaders, a particular kind of leaders. So that's why, if you're thinking, university, well, because we're dealing with a lot of our communities that are coming and they're trying to figure out, well, what do I do with my names? My name don't work for me anymore. What do I do? And it's a scary thing to change a name. But we have 40,000 gods. He just went through a whole list of genealogy. All of those names are in his body, which means just got to start triggering them if you want certain triggers to come forward. So now that's the hua. That's that very complex growing years that you had to make sense, and you realize, oh my goodness, I'm different. Your ha'alele, at what point did you actually begin to step? And we want to focus now on the kakao or the uhi, or a kauhi, as some may say. At what point did you were guided, something guided you into that realm?
Ooh, that's a good question. So we're gonna backtrack just a little pinch. So when I was 13, I had been diagnosed with a cancer and went through all kinds of treatment and operations and you name it, and that left me needing more operations later on. So part of that was, okay, it's time. I need change from where I was at, and Hawaii was just looking better and better and better and better. I got to the point where I didn't like the cold winters in Colorado anymore. Having a lot of operations and whatnot, body parts hurt, and when you get hurt later on, even it heals. That cold weather it hurts. And so yeah, I was ready. I don't know if you can see this. That used to come all the way up here, crack my chest down, went in the front, went also through the back to fuse my spine. And then I have the scars here from Halo. I have scars in the back also. So just different things. I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm ready. I made 18 within a week. I graduated. Week and a half later, I came home. And so with that, I just called up my mom's brother, uncle, I'm here. And he was like, great, where's here? I'm like, I'm in Honolulu. He said, what are you doing? I said, I don't know, I'm here. I had this call and I'm here. Something's telling me come. So I came. And he just left and went back home to Hawaii Island because he was living on Oahu. And in fact, when my brother graduated the year before me, he came and he stayed and he lived with my uncle for so many months. And then he had something he had to take care of in the continent, and he ended up going back and just ended up staying and working and living over there. But with that, the first question was, okay, great, nephew. I'm glad you're here. Too bad I just moved. I went back home. I'm on Hawaii Island. I'm in Puna. Mea. I have a question for you. I'm like, okay, who are you? Who are you? He said, ask yourself that who are you? And I was like, well, I could drop names. That's not who I am. And, so it's just this really, geez, I guess you would say philosophical question of who am I? And then it was, man, it was like 3 months. And then he came to Oahu and he took me down to Makua side. And he broke into this oration that was like 1,000,000 miles long. And he just said, you heard me. Thank you for listening, is what he said. What do you do with that? I was like, I didn't know, you never call me. A phone never ring. I'll go, what you talking about? But he said, I came and I went specific areas that were pertinent to our family from old days time. And I kahea, and you listened. You heard me, you came. So on another side, I had a deep connection with him because he was Special Forces Marines and Nam and whatnot. And then he was a drill instructor. He got bust up. His parachute collapsed, and he was training for the Marines, parachute or parajumping or whatever they call that. And he was about 250 feet. His parachute collapsed and he free fell and basically broke everything in his body. So he'd have all kind of operation after operation. And the idea with that was he would come and he would recuperate at our house. So I was always around him, when I was little Opihi, follow him around if he could. If not, I brought him something to eat, something to drink. I love it, the paw away, whatever it was. So I had a connection from young time with him. I was 3. I got a big scar in my chin right underneath this umi. We went to his house and he just the old days you get the sink full of water, you shave, you rinse them in the water, you do stick them in, rinse them, put them down. We came in, I saw him just finish and he put it down after he rinsed it. I reached up there and I grabbed that bottle, woo, I hooked him, caught my chin. And then they patched me up. Never went doctor, they patched me up. So I was real close to him for what little contact I had off and on. And when I came and he said, thank you for listening. And he talked about his kahea and what he would do and when he would do it and how often he would do it. And I was like, brah, that's so genius because we look at the moon phases, we follow certain things, and it was always at these intervals, you feel this little hooky coming in. And, that idea of we know about ho'olohe, ho'olono to me is that essence of when you feel the vibration, you hear it, but you feel it as well. It resonates. And that was going on. And so he spoke on that. And then from then on, we just dive into family things and learning. And boom, 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 he gave me 5 names. These are people. You need to go learn how to dance hula. You need to learn how to move like Kanaka. I was like, okay. I grew up doing martial arts. So I was like, yeah, I love that. Let's do it. And so I was game. I was excited to do so. And I started with Kolana Kasparovich, but that was for a later time. And my tutu's younger cousin, Malia Craver, was the one that told me about the name thing. And then my mom's brother, my uncle, solidified the name thing, just as a little tie-in. But it was Tutu that said, hey, I know this young man. I was with her and Tutu Lolena at, or Anake Lolena at Ala Moana Beach Park. And we made little food. We brought them at the picnic table. These ladies are just, oh, little Hawaii. Kaulana came, had his ukulele with him. Basamao was singing, whatever. And that was my introduction to him. And she said, you should dance for him. I said, okay. And different things were going on. So that was short-lived. It was maybe 6 months, maybe 8 months. I forget, honestly, because that was a couple of days ago. And And then I ended up, I went to one of the people, and that was Keone. And Keone was tattooed. And some of the boys in the hala were tattooed. Or became tattooed. It was one of those things where, and I was like, holy cow, I want to get tattooed. I want to show that, that I'm worthy of carrying this, and show that I'm Hawaiian, and my lineage, and you name it, right? I wanted to show all of these different things. And my family said no. And I was like, okay, why? What do I gotta do? And so they just had a laundry list of things for me that I needed to learn about my family and myself before I could get marked. And it was about genealogy. It was really about genealogy. And in that sense, it was about not just the names. Who were they? Where are they from? What they did? Who were they tied to? Who were we in all of the society that we live with? Not who were we on Hawaii Island compared to somebody else's family on Kauai, because our Kauai connection was from Keawe Poi Poi. That was further back, right? So we're talking who we were from my parents back into those important people. And so it was just study. And so I could tell you 8 or 9 generations like that, but I couldn't tell you things about them. And so when I dove into that, I went more deep, I went wide, and I brought it back forward. And I recited 586 lines of genealogy to my family. Now that wasn't just one line direct. It was deep and wide, and some of it was just particular parts. I didn't have everything. I wish we had everything. We don't have everything, but it was very specific, and it took me a long time, and I wanted to quit. I said, if this is what it takes to show that I'm Kanaka, I don't need it. What I realized at the same time was I never did need it. I never needed to mark my body to show that I was Kanaka, because I was, number one, I was learning my genealogy. I was dancing hula, learning to move like my family in traditional sense. So it was just like, holy cow. And one thing was grandma used to have my uncle guys in the morning time. It was get up and you do 15 minutes of hula. And it was just going, it wasn't doing the actual dance of song and whatnot. It was you get up, you do calisthenics, and you do your basics. And the idea was to be fit and to be in shape and get your body woken up and move. It was all about the whole Allah. And so, doing those things, it was great. Everything both my uncles was like, boy, you make sure you dance hula now. Okay. and that was huge. And so I understood that I was becoming Hawaiian. I was becoming Kanaka. I was becoming this Oiwi Hawaii that was missing in the earlier years. And so little by little, when Keone started, was 1990, he started tattoo. And then he was like, hey, what you doing after hula on Saturday? So here's my thing. I was introduced as Keone is a cousin of one of our family lineage, of one of our family lines. And so I was like, cool, dancing for family. This is cool. This is great. And so he's like, cuz, what you doing after hula? And I was like, nothing, what you need? And he said, you want to come with me? I was like, sure. He said, bring clothes. Okay. In those days, clothes is a fresh t-shirt and fresh surf shorts. Hey, grab the hose, go outside, grab the hose, shower up, quick dry off, and you're ready to go. And we did. In those days, we went to places, to your house, to his house, her house, didn't matter, because we did not have a halal or a hale that was specific to kakau uhi, kakau ili, kakau moli, or even changing those terms around, ili kakau. However, they're all interchangeable, but it pertains to this practice of what we were doing. So I went, I had fun, I tripped out, it was amazing. And that was my journey. I just started as a helper. I just kokua, just kako'o. And little by little, when my knowledge would grow, he would say, okay, I want to do this pattern. Help me, go drop the stencil for me. Because those days we use machine right-handed and we use stencil. Oh, yeah, sure, no problem. I help you whatever you need. But consistently, every conversation spoke of how using this machine was not proper. It's not the right thing to do. Number one, if we're going to mark ourselves, how are we going to use a tool that was, how would you say, a tool or a machine that was created by the oppressor to show us how native we were? Doesn't make sense. Why would we do that? So there was always the idea that we needed to learn how to tap. People had given insight to Keone on how to tap, how to hold the tools, about the patterns and whatnot, but we just didn't have nobody to show us. Eventually, that led to another part of the story where we did learn those things. But it was just great hanging out with Keone and hearing all of his stories and just being a sponge, soaking up all these different things. Learning that I come from a couple lines that are really monstrous because of the people that made these lines. And it was a time frame. It was in the 17s. And there was a lot of intermarrying going on. In that intermarrying, you have Tangaro with 5 different wives over here, and then some of those kids married back to each other, and then some of those ladies that Tangaro was with some other Kane, and those kids married back, and here we are today, right? A lot, I kid you not, a lot of those. So yeah, it was learning about my ohana that put me in the space that made it so I was able to become marked. And I never wanted to do the work because I felt like I always never had enough information, enough understanding, enough knowledge. And it was through time that I learned, and it's become a kuleana that that my teacher Keone, and he has titles. He absolutely has titles. He was titled by Suluape Paulo, or Paulo is his first name, but Suluape is a family name, but it's also a title for the family. So he was titled by Paulo. Actually, Paulo's family titled our kumu, because our kumu's our teacher's teacher had an untimely death, and so he did not go through that process. But the family recognized the gains that Keone had made using traditional tools and the insight that he had in Hawaiian processes or ideology. So he knew how to do what we needed to do. We just needed to learn how to tap. And so that was where Paulo really came in and was very instrumental in teaching these things, but also taught Samoan history and tradition in that to Keone. And he was titled, and because he was titled, it was through that he was able to title me. Although his title is a Samoan title, I consider him as that equivalent in Hawaii, but there was nobody to give him the title. But he's absolutely the master. So knowing about my family and changing my name, I would go to the family parties, and then I see all the old folks, and I want to be in that conversation. I'm that fly on the wall. I'm bringing right here. I get the omole vibe. Boom. You want more? What you thirsty? Oh, Auntie Tutu, what you need? And I'm bringing lave. That was me. I was a lave. And I just went just malama the kupuna. And in that time frame, we had people that were born, that were still living from the turn of the century. And so I had some really interesting folks in the family that were just dropping little bits and pieces here and there. And I just soaked it up, Tongoro. I just soaked it up really. And
Yeah.
and I started to get marked. Yeah. Interesting.
You know, the interesting journey. And, you know, my wife and I learned a lesson years ago, and it's a good lesson. We grew up in, of course, we only grew up in Hawaii, and we know we've been indoctrinated in the practice of pele, and whatever that means through the halal, and not just the halal. Some things were outside of the halal that we did, and we knew the chants, we knew the dances, we had the energy. We were like a little bit iconic for our little bit of time in our hula history, and then we went to visit with our cousins down in this is the Marquesas, and we found out that they had Pele stories too. And then the Tahitis had Pele stories, and other people had Pele stories, and we're thinking to ourselves, but she's in Hawaii now, So it was a little humbling, because we realized something that we were mature enough to hear. It may have come earlier, but we weren't mature, and our ears were a little bit coolie at that time. But we realized that as an oceanic family, everybody holds a little piece of the knowledge. In this case, the title. In this case, we might have the narrative here, but the tapping instructor is in another island down there. And so when we all come together and you talk about your kupuna, everybody having a little piece of the puzzle, the job is to collect it all. And so for those mo'opuna, which is some of us in this Zoom group here, there are a number of us where we're, as you described, we're at the beck and call. And we spent many years picking up some of this random information, but for some reason we were hooked on it. We rather be with the kupuna than be outside playing with the kids. We just kind of soaked it up. And then what happens at one point, we reach a maturity and the pieces of the puzzle start coming together. Everybody has something. So, the title from Samoa is not the only thing we got from Samoa. We have a lot of stuff from Samoa historically. And what is that big noise coming from? Oh, there's something landing over Panama. In any case, but so I love that piece, that everybody has a piece of, everybody contributes, and it's not going to come from one line all the time. But also another thing is you spoke to the fact that your tutu was doing the kahea, went to different significant spaces doing the kahea, and there was this mo'opuna that was responding. And it might take a month or years for the response to happen, to the physical movement through that response, but it has happened. And so that's a great thing. That's a question we ask our students, or sometimes we have to ask ourselves, how many times the tutus were in kahea and we never respond, because sometimes they do. We say, call, here we are, inspire us. We're doing all these inspiration chants, and then they're inspiring us, but yet that's not what we want to hear. So that's one. We just got to be sober about it. If you walk away from it, you walk away from it. The chances are another mo'opuna is going to respond. But the other thing that you did mention, and that was important to me, was the what was that? So the need to respond, the calling, the need. Everybody had pieces that brought the pieces to the puzzle together. That was an important feature. What we want to do right now is can we just segue right into the video? I want to give people a 2-minute glimpse of his story, but now in action, not necessarily with words.
When you do that, I can exit stage left or that's left, but right, real quick.
So I don't know. So long it's an appropriate ho'i. Cannot just be any kind. Gotta be a ho'i.
I gotta go over that.
Okay, go for it. Okay, no, wahiki ke ho'onui. Oh yeah, that was a nice segue into another part of our brain and how our brain relates to the same storyline. Now, let me look at the gallery here. You know, so those of you that were looking at this, now that you hear, you've had a little bit, you had near 45 minutes of hearing his story. That story is in now when you look at that video, you go like, now it's not just about, oh, look at they're doing Hawaiian tattoo. Oh, I cannot wait. I like being a guy like that. I want to get tapped. And oh, it's not just about that anymore. It's about that there was this kid, half yeah, I don't like get emails, I use the wrong term, but in any case, but ano hui kau ke koko, yeah? hapa ke koko. One piece is Hawaii, the other piece is non-Hawaii, and coming together, the conflicts on the continent, the conflicts in Hawaii, the outer conflicts, the inner conflicts, and then the motions, and then the mentors started to get introduced, and then people started to drop little hints, like Hansel and Gretel leaving little popcorn to help you find your way. That's what people do. They leave you hints, and they want to test how you're going to respond. Are you going to respond? Are you going to commit? And so when you look at that video, there's a whole lot more behind just, I want that tattoo. I want to be laying down there. What do I need to do that? Now, there's this whole storyline behind it. Now, what we want to do, we are ready to hit. So if you guys have to leave, you guys go leave. But this is kind of one, I don't know when you can get this kind of opportunity again. Some of you can look like dinner can hold off a little while longer. You don't look too hungry. Okay. So I encourage you to stay. But this next focus, so you did talk to us about your hua, your formative years, all that chaos. And then the ha'alele, where your body is, interestingly, your body went through this trauma of cancer, the treatment, the environment, the physical environment that you're living in, and the fact that everything was telling you, ha'alele, you need to leave that space. And you come into Hawaii, Uncle, I'm here. Oh, yeah. Welcome. You're here. Where's here? Oh, on Oahu. Oh, welcome home, but I stay in Hawaii. By the way, who are you? Now, if we look at that person as a mythical figure, not as an uncle, but like this kahuna you meet in the bushes, that's the kind of stuff they're going to talk about. Who are you? They leave these little, I have two kumuhulas, but I have this one kumuhula. Now, Etinalani, she used to just leave those questions, sometimes not even full sentences, in your head. It stays in your head for 30 years. Who are you? What is your role? And I'm still trying to figure it out. Now, and then the ha'alele, you physically move here. Now, what we want to do is we want to focus on the huaka'i. You did speak to the journey, because all of these are incremental journeys to the big journey. But I want you to focus on, if you could, please, and if you're comfortable, because everybody's willing to share the happy pieces of their life, because that's what we're comfortable and that's what we're groomed to talk about. But knowing that there are people like us out in the community, and if they don't hear our story, they may never hear it, because the world is not willing to share that piece. We don't want Disneyland to inform us. Yeah, that's meant for another kind of thinking. So what were some of the hardships that you just really had to fight through, that was not, and nobody, you had to do it alone? It's like Hi'iaka going into the bushes by herself. And she, her Pele, and of course Pele's sister says she cannot do it. She's never done it. And Pele says everything that she needs is within her body, within her call. And Pele just let her go. And so Hi'iaka had to face, she did have companions, but interestingly, those companions were just elements of herself. So what were one or two of those challenges that really fortified your backbone to continue, that you made that challenge work, advance this story?
So when I eventually got working, finding work, I was working at a place in Waipahu that made styrofoam for bedding and you name it, furniture, $3.85 an hour. And I quickly realized that wasn't gonna cut it. And I wanted to go to school, but I needed money. I needed things. I needed a place, I needed to be able to take care of myself. And it was so difficult. Um, and I remember getting a raise. I was like $4. I was like, yeah, $4. Hey, that was nothing. It didn't mean nothing on the check. Really, it was pennies. Um, so I ended up was notified that, or informed, there's an opening, Ironworkers Union, local 625. I was like, okay, whatever. I don't know. I had no idea what rebar was all about. Like, oh my gosh, bro, I had no idea. But the funny thing is, I put in for Hawaiian Electric apprenticeship, and there was it was easy, year and a half waiting. And the auntie told me, oh boy, it's gonna be a while. Just wait. When they call you, then you come in, you take a test. They're gonna see where they can place you. And I was like, okay. Year and a half. I needed something like last month. You know what I mean, right? And so I got into construction. On my dad's side, my dad was raised up with, because my dad is number 8 out of 10, and his elder sisters, they married folks that were into construction. One was a bricklayer, mason. One was what you call it, a carpenter, and that one that was a carpenter. The whole family did carpentry and custom home building from the 1800s, and that was a Thompson family that came out of Oklahoma and Kansas, I believe, something like that. And so dad was real young, 9, 10 years old, and he was doing stuff on the side with those guys. And so as I was young, I was around that too. I see my uncle guys do stuff, make custom home. My dad did drafting. He would detail what needed to be done for the house. Every board that you're gonna need to make a house, he would detail it out. And he'd tell you, okay, this addition of the house, you're gonna need 125 2x4s, whatever length, and he'll just go right down the line. And so I was like, okay, I've been around carpentry, and my dad did plumbing to a lesser degree. He was more better with electrical. We did some drywall stuff, you name it. So I was like, okay. Nobody showed me iron. Holy cow, that was a whole awakening. And so I got in with Associated Steel. Associated Steel was made up of Japanese families after World War II, right after World War II. After the internment camps, everything was POW. They came together in that kumiai kind of system where they all threw it into helping each other, and they created Associated Steel. And there were many people, and little by little they were dropping out. And then one guy was raising his stakes in the company by buying the next guy out and buying the next guy out. So he had more shares, and he was the president. In fact, he was alive when I was young and working the company. But it was being around these guys. These Japanese companies, so all the foremans are Japanese. Only had a couple that were either Samoan or Hawaiian, but everybody working the job was all mixed, Portuguese, Hawaiian, you name it. But the smart people that led the job was the Japanese. Oh, I get so many yellings. If I did something right, it's good thing your mother would marry Haole. I did something wrong, it was stupid Hawaiian. And so I got suspended. I got suspended 3 different times because I'm small, but I don't stand for that. I don't stand for BS. And I'm just kind of like, you tell me yes, it's yes. You tell me no, it's no. It's black or white. It's easy for me like that. I'm really like that. And I stick to rules. If you teach me the rules of the game, I stick to it. I stick to that, and I honor the rules. And so I'm thinking, I know my family. I'm proud of my family. So I was part of that generation, graduating from the 80s. We were proud to be Kanaka. And oh, I get suspended and you name it for fighting. And but they knew maybe I'm not tough and I'm not a badass, but I'm not going to back down. And I'll stick to what I think is right. And so I had a lot of opposition, any which way you looked at it, for being Hawaiian. And then I had those that said, "Oh, you're from the continent. You never going to know nothing about being Hawaii. You grew up over there. You're not going to know nothing." And interesting enough, now that part of my family actually comes to me for information. Um, Interesting things here and there. So I had rejection from my family that was Kanaka, that said, "I'll never equate. I'll never be Kanaka." Then I had my Caucasian side that said, "You turn your back on us?" And I was like, "Well, I know you guys and I know America really well and America's system. I need to know my other half." Um, and then, of course, the folks that I work with. So that was that part of thing on a personal level. Once I really dove in with my teacher, with Keone, and started going and doing things, then we got put down because at a certain time we grew our hair long. And those days he wasn't supposed to have long Hawaiian, he wasn't supposed to have long hair. Only women had long hair dancing hula. But they don't realize that came from Captain Cook days. You know what I mean? When Captain Cook came, all the holidays, they like the young girls premenstrual that had the long hair. And the idea was once they get their menstruation, their waimakalehua, they went oki their hair, they cut their hair, and maybe left a little lock, a little piece anywhere, but they would leave that long, and it honored their younger childhood or innocence, the days of innocence. So there was people in Honolulu that put us down for growing our hair, that put us down for having uhi on our bodies, for put us down for having only a front flap, or sometimes no more flap. Like we tie our malo hume,
Join the meeting.
not hume, but puali. So it's just the idea that you had all of these people that would criticize you for either doing good or trying to do good, or wanting to do good. It was like, wow, I can't please nobody. And I know my teacher had a lot of backlash all throughout the community. We weren't supposed to have tattoos. Nobody's supposed to have tattoos. That went on the wayside. Everybody's Christian now, and we got to be Christian. But you know the interesting thing, my mom's family said that what was explained as Jesus was a God of love. So why not? Because we have the Keliʻiokalani, right? We have so many different multitudes of akua. Why not a God of love? Because we don't have a God of love. As far as I know, we don't have a God of love. We have a God that invokes lovemaking, or invokes a baby, procreating for that baby, God of war, a God of healing, a God of this, a God of that. Gods of winds, of ocean current. Where's our God of love? They said Jesus is a God of love. So my family, my tutele was like, yeah, bring them. Sure, why not? What's one more? Bring them. Inclusivity, right? Kako, yeah, we are a people of that inclusivity. So it was, some people put me down and said, oh, you're getting into this black area that you shouldn't be dealing with, because you don't need to know about the old gods and the old ways and the old prayers. That's bad. That's heva. And so my great auntie called me heebie-jeebie keli'i, because the questions that I would come with gave her chicken skin. And she's like, ooh, keli'i, you make me scared. You give me the heebie-jeebies. And she would have all the kind, the ili would be all the kind, yeah. And I would just laugh. And I was like, oh, I said, Tutu, you was raised in this time frame and you watch these people do these things. Oh, we don't talk about that anymore. And then she goes, but your grandma did. I was like, right? Grandma did, and you the baby sister, but you didn't. That's on you. But my grandma did. And my grandma taught our family different things. And she was known as a healer. She could do bone setting, la'au, pulikahea, you name it, like right down the line. But here's the cool thing with our hula. So coming from South Kona, Uncle George Naope and whatnot. That's cousin to us. All of that line, us guys' line is Palake. Our line is that K line. We are Kuluai Maka line, Hano Hano line from Kealia. So when family would do things, it was because family always did things. So, okay, now you want to learn? Okay, it's your time. You better go learn. And so it's just instrumental to be in that space to learn. And learning about tattooing, I remember getting scolding from my uncle, the one that asked me, "Oh, who are you? Why'd you come?" And because I did something on my leg from my Olaniho, but it tied to a physical aspect of our family. And from what I know, Keone explained to me that I was the first person in all of modern Hawaii to wear this pattern, because it pattern went to sleep in the 1850s, because what the pattern spoke about wasn't being done anymore. We didn't need to speak on war and all of these different things. That's what we came from. So we don't push that. Those days I still was studying martial arts. I was dancing hula. A lot of his hula was hula paio. We did chants that spoke of temple dances, that spoke of lua. I remember Malie Maui. That was amazing. We had another one for Alahe'e. That was a mano from Keliʻiokalani. That was just amazing. Just different hulas. Oh, Marquesas. Oh, I love this conversation, Tangaro. We did Ke'ihu ala Kapua'a, which was a chant, hula pua'a, that is said to be some 1,100 years old chant from Kauai that ties to Marquesas. Now, in the early 90s, we saw, I think it was Nat Geo was doing something and filmed the Marquesans. I don't know where they were, Evo or I'm not sure, but it was this close to our hula pua'a. It was amazing. Their sounds. So we know the luapa will imitate the pua'a, but in that and the digging and the uplifting and the consuming and all of everything that pua'a was about, and the place names was almost like me na po'e or nukuiva. It was amazing. And I still remember that hula. And I remember that hula because I screwed up one time. We were performing one time for something, and I went one way and they was going the other way. I was like, oh, jump into it. But I really did. I appreciated that we were doing things of the temple. I appreciated that, and I didn't see that. And our Kumu's hula lineage came from Uncle Dara Lupanui and Antimural folks. So that was family for us. When you look at that, I'm a Ha'ai also from South Kona. And those that don't know genealogy, Ha'ai is a sibling to Alapa'i. Yeah, so just layers and layers of genealogy that our family were of essence. So I was learning things.
You know, that piece of you know, the anger that comes with the journey, and it's part of it. It's a confusion. You know, you're sorting out generations and generations. You know, you're combing out the tangles. You know, we have to, you know, you spend some generations spend getting the hair all tangled, and some generations spend combing out those tangles. And one of the things that we have to help our students with, and not just Kanaka, but students from around the world that come from our Pacific cousins, you know, they've inherited, they were born into families that have these social conflicts, these religious conflicts, political conflicts, and they don't know how to navigate it. And you know, and they come from a system where it's very collective. So if my family say this, you better do this, and you know, and at one point you don't want to dismantle that, because you know why, you kind of get a degree to rebuild that, so you don't want to dismantle it to begin with. But how do you negotiate, how do you navigate that? And so one of the things that I remember in the 80s, just to get a student to wear a kihei, and we were talking the other day, the family called me up and accused me of bringing the devil into the classroom. And now plenty of people wearing kihei, nobody questions kihei. But the same thing happened when people were getting tattooed. Was why are they doing that? They're bringing, everything was associated with the Diablo, and all of these things. One of the things that we're able to help our students, because in the end, they have to make a decision. And the decision has to be made not from anger, because anger will beget anger. But, how to just calm your heart and make a good decision. And, and one of them is, we help our students understand that, the decisions that were made by your grandparents, your great-grandparents, by the people 200 years ago, those were the best decisions that they made at that time for their situation. And we're alive today. We're having this conversation because people made good decisions. We may not agree with those decisions, but we're here today because the decisions they made kept them alive, kept them going, even if it meant they put some knowledge systems to sleep, even if it meant that they put to sleep some of the tattoo designs because you need that meant an action, and the action went to sleep, so the design went to sleep. But I like to turn to my students, and just as your uncle say, well, who are you? I like to ask my students, what decision are you going to make today? And make a good one, because your kid's going to hold you to it. What decisions do you have to make today? Some of our students are sometimes very angry at realizing that they're Christians and knowing the Christian history on Hawaii and the colonization. And and that's a difficult thing, because you cannot inform them that's a wrong belief, or that belief is not good. That's not our place to do that. And those are, as you say, you have Kane, Kanaloa, Jesus, and you have all of them together. So what we do want to do is have students make sound decisions, and help and ask them the question, put the onus on them. Do you want to spend your life faulting the decisions of your ancestors? I mean, that's really up to you. Or you want to, or just accept, just know that it exists. The question is, what are you doing? Sometimes we like to put the focus on other people, because we don't want to deal, but what are you doing? And it's easy in Hawaii to ridicule other people. It's really easy, especially in the hula world. Hula people, there's layers. So one layer is, we love to support each other. But the other layer is, it's the arts. So there's always this level of critique. And, and one of the things that I did when I became a kumuhula, which I was not planning to become one, I didn't want to become a kumuhula, but when the situation is put and you kind of, they say it's a choice, but, it's really just a coded non-choice moment. One of the things I did commit to was to teach my hula students, there's absolutely no need to critique and criticize another halau. Don't dismantle another halau's kuahu or their belief system to establish yours. You leave them to their own. They like uwehe like that. That's their business. They have their kupuna they have to answer to. That's not your kuleana. Unless they're in your space and they're pushing their things on you, then you have to defend. But other than that, we have so much things in the world that we need to fix. So, and that's not an easy thing to teach, because we live in a world of strong critique, and critique is always good if it advances the ball. But sometimes we got to get the bust up critique ones. The other ones say, "Oh, what you doing? You failure. You're lucky your mother and marry one haole, or you know how it goes." Because then that just pumps up that adrenaline, and then you're going to spend a piece of your life addressing that. And so it provides you the fuel. We have a really good question, and let me see if you like answer them, go for it. If you don't like, we say, Ovi says, how does the huaka'i, the journey, come through koko? How does one's journey come through their blood? What you think?
That depends on the individual. Absolutely. Is that individual locked in? Are they connected? What's the pilina for that individual to their ohana? I'm by nature a really mellow person, a very, very soft-spoken person. I've definitely have hard work ethics. But here's the thing. I'm either working very hard or I'm not working at all, like hardly working. So I'm hot or I'm cold. I'm not that in between. So that depends on the individual. What do they tap to? And how they're connected. And what is everybody's journey compared to the next person's journey? So that's really, it can be very philosophical in the sense of what does that individual recognize? Now, for me, my journey was a journey of learning, a journey of growth, an awakening or reawakening. I I had done things and I have tendencies that absolutely are tied to my great grandfather. And I never knew until people that knew him started telling me about him and the things that he did and how he did them. I was just like, bro, I do the same thing and I do it the same way. And I have the same, that ini within, like it just burns. I gotta do this and I gotta do it this way. And that's just the rules. That's just me. So it has to do with the velo. So everybody's journey is different, but does that velo come through to there? And if it does, okay, look at it this way. Um, my father's side that came from Europe, part of it were royalists from England, and I don't know what a royalist from England would do, other than maybe rule lands or enslave people to farm for them. I don't know, right? But we know kings of England and Scotland and Ireland as all had that kind of issues. So people want to raise up and fight. But we do know on other parts of his family, they were farming people and ranching people. And so at one time would be my dad's my dad's grandfather. When it came to into Galveston, when they migrated, they didn't come to Ellis Island, they went to Galveston. And at one time, they did ranching in Texas, but bought land in New Mexico and had the largest cattle ranch in all of New Mexico. I was like, bro, that's amazing. I don't know anything about that kind of life. I tell you right now, I'm afraid of big animals. I'm allergic to dog bites. I tend to bleed. I can't ride horse. The buggers scare me. I talk to them and they go the other direction. I literally, I'm riding on a horse, line up with people. We going. My horse turns left and goes and starts grazing. Everybody leaving me. I'm like, oh, and I can't talk to the horse. The horse not listening. I'm like, bro, what kind of hell? Come on, hurry up. And in this bugger, I kid you not, I'm like, freaking horse. I was ready for jump off and walk. I'm gonna leave the horse. And then when the horse turned and started running, I was hanging on for dear life, right? So I'm like, bro, horse is not for me. Unless, maybe our Tongan cousin, we're gonna cook that bugger or something. But Japanese style, we sashimi them, right? Throwing that out there, not trying to make waves, but I mean, so it's interesting what comes through on every individual. I am great in the ocean. I'm not great in fresh water. I have a phobia or a fear of mo'os and of dark water, and that's something from our family. But then again, we come from South Kona and from Ka'u, and we don't have all that kind of mo'os actions like you folks do in Kelkaha and Panaeva and whatnot. Likewise, all the way up the coast, Paliku and Hamakua and you name it. It's just the idea that certain things don't resonate with me, so I stay away from it. So that's part of my journey also. As to another person's journey, their characteristics they might find will come out in their actions. So years back, I was challenged that there was a panel. There's a term for it. The people who go study academia at University of Hawaii Manoa, they had a panel for traditional Hawaiian tattooing, and then had Keone and myself and some other of the boys that we all learned together. At a certain time, some guys stepped away, kind of thought they had it in a bag and went their own way, and so Kumu released them. never graduated them or not, but they cut the learning short immensely. There's so much left to learn, and unfortunately, they're still doing work. But being challenged, I was, my good friend Mehana said, Keliʻi, what gives you the right to do this work? And I said, well, number one, my teacher's sitting over here and he says it's okay. And he's teaching me. So he's the teacher. That gives me the permission. Number two, I come from many lines of tattooing tradition. We carve the skin, we carve the ki'i for the temples of Kamehameha and then back. So I asked those folks in the audience and anybody asking, what do you do? What did your family do? Seek it, learn it, and you might find that you might be good at it. I'm not the best at what I do, and I strive to be good. I strive to be good like my teacher, but I know there's going to be better and better and better. And the idea is, he woke up to practice. I saw him. I sat by his side when he woke it up. I learned pretty quick because I seen it. So now I have all these insights that I've already gained from watching it and then doing it and putting it to use. My students, I can teach them quicker. So the learning curve is much faster. It's not starting out with a very, very raw tool that's very archaic. We're starting out with tools that are sexy. I kid you not, Tangoro. Our tools are sexy. So when we learn
I'm for sexy. I'm for sexy.
Right? Nothing
Sexy
wrong.
is good on enrollment.
There you go. There you go. And sometimes I might get nukud for my choice of words, but
No.
they're sexy. In our early days, our tools were not sexy at all. And we took what was shown to us from someone's. And Paulo's toolmaker from Aotearoa, Timati, came and he showed us, gave us little, stayed with us for a length of time, did work, and we figured it out. He came back another time, and then that second trip, I whipped out 3 tools in one day. And he was like, holy cow, that's amazing. And the coolest thing was my teacher took like 2 of those tools, which was cool. I was honored that if I'm not good enough to use them and I don't really know how to use them, but you do the work, let me help you do the work. Let me help you be in the space to get good and to get better and to create an understanding as a halau or a pa, if you will, of what uhi might have been from the old days. And that's what I seek. And in general, that's what we all seek, that are of that velo from Keone. And
so the students that we're dealing, and we're not, when I say students, I'm also talking about the people that are employed within the university system. We cannot transform the university system without transforming every component of it. Some components transform fast. Some, we gotta wait till they retire because they just come in from a different period of time, and and so you gotta wait for the canoe pie and make sure that canoe don't launch again, because it just doesn't work. But the whole idea that try it, because you may not know, you might be good at it. There could be something. They talk about the huakai, the journey that's in the blood, and what happens when the blood is clogged, then the body goes into shock, and that's it. It's strokes, and so try it, because you never know if you're good at it, and who knows, there might be an ancestor pushing you into it. And so that's one of the things we like to encourage our students, is to try it, go for it, respect the process, but also know that you've tried it and maybe you've met it, then walk away. But also, when we in the world of hula, not everybody come into the halau are front row dancers. Some people are better van drivers than they're dancers, and we need van drivers. I was a good dancer because why I had to be a good dancer? I don't know how to drive van. I always pick them up day wrong day, too early, too late. Yeah, some people, they're never going to be the best chanters, but they make the best a'ahu. They can put their regalia together. How can you be a chanter without appropriate regalia? You know, some people may have remembered the chant for the tattoo. Some people may have remembered how to make the dye for the tattoo. Some people may have remember how to make sexy sticks for the tattoo. And our job is to come together. But you said something that's very, very beautiful. Sometimes it's also the support of somebody else's journey. That your journey is to also support somebody else's journey. So you make this, and it's an honor when somebody, especially someone that's very skilled, say, wow, I could use that. And at that point, you share the same canoe. You know, it feels really good to contribute that. And not that we have to be the best. You know, America puts a lot of attention on the master, the master, the master. But we define master quite differently here in the Pacific. The master is not necessarily an individual, but is a condition of a community or the condition of a family. Everybody's contributing to that outcome. You know, somebody will gather the lauhala, somebody would kihai, take all the cuckoos off, somebody make the pole. You know, everybody is participating in this basket. So when we say the master, that's because sometimes we have a difficult time in using titles, or sometimes when we use traditional titles, but it comes with an American or ethnocentric or Eurocentric mindset. The title is usually specific to the individual, whereas for us, it's really about a community. And so, you know, I want to encourage those on board. Number one, so what we want to do, we're going to show photos, and we're going to see where Keliʻi takes these photos. So we're going a little bit over time here, but you know, like I said, some of you don't look like you're starving, but if you're hungry, take a little walk away, come back. But if you have to leave, we do have one more Mōkaulele next week. Noel, who presenting? So I'm just doing a little commercial in case you have to walk away. This Noel,
I believe we have a Maori presenter next week.
Okay, so he I thought he was a Maori. He's Numangtangi Mackenzie. He's actually he's Mangaya. He's a Cook Islander, yeah, from the island of Mangaya. And I met him as an artist at the Honolulu Biennial, and he actually uses indigenous art or elements of indigenous art to indigenize urban spaces. So that's an interesting, and this is the first time we're going to have a non-Hawaiian presenting. So this is going to be exciting. So join us next week. Now we're going to be showing photos, and we're going to see where Mr. Makua is going to go and take it. Okay. And again, and the whole idea is sometimes all you need, don't forget your story, guys. Don't forget the elements of the story. Not only the big stories. You know, when you look at the heiau, those big stones get our attention first. But you got to look close, because it's the small stones, the chink stones, that keep those big stones in place. No more, you remove the unu stones, the chink stones, those big stones will begin to roll away. So don't only pay attention to the big chapters of your life. There's some little paragraphs, don't lose them. Even if they're random and you don't know how they fit, one day you're going to go, that's why I was meant to be in that space with that tutu who decided to share this random information. Okay, because sometimes it's not for us, we're just the carriers. Somebody gives us the piece for somebody else's puzzle. And so sometimes, as Makua says, we have to contribute to other people's storyline, other people's talents, other people's journeys. Okay, so we're going to show these images, and we're going to just let him take it away. So, and I don't know what order they're going to come in. Okay, so I feel like I'm in the 1970s, you know, behind curtain number 1, 2, 3, one of them will get one car. No get new hype, all you get is one box of tofu behind the curtain. Okay, first one, please, Mr. O'Brien. Oh my God.
Up one, bro.
What a...
So I started out as a right guard, pulling guard. So my number was 74. They said, hey, the guys in the front line gotta get high numbers. The guys in the backfield get the low numbers. But when I was pulling guard, I would come and pull. The guard is right next to the center. I would come out and I'd shoot across and I bust through and open the hole up for the running back. And they would close by the time the running back came. I'm like, bro, where you was? So they said, oh, this guy's fast. Make him a running back. So then I transitioned to running back. I was a halfback. I was the right halfback. And you see my helmet, only get the 2 bars come across. Bro, the face mask, that's old days, bro. You used to nowadays, everybody has a full cage coming in. And you're the little puka all cover. Huh? I get 2 bars come across. That's those days. And that helmet, I split. I came through, a guy came to tackle me. I put down and I just ran him over. I split that helmet. Had a big crack right in it. I had to buy a new helmet after that. That was good.
So you know what we're looking at? I'm gonna put on my mythical lens, my mythological lens. So I'm looking at this young boy, here, and then I'm looking at this matured man. I don't know the right term. Matured man here. Yeah, one is his skin is untouched, and the other one his skin has markings. Now, if you know nothing about what was just shared in the form of story, all you saw was these 2 photos of this young boy and this mature man, and it's the same person.
They probably
what is going to run through your brain? Yeah, what is going to run through your brain? In my brain, I think, what was this person's journey like? At the point this boy was wearing this what do you call? I never did play sports. So what you call those things? This
the
football things.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Ahu football.
Yeah,
At the point did the boy know, this young man know exactly where he was heading to, or what was he was being called into, and the challenges? No, I look at this young Hi'iaka here. Yeah, and we all have photos like this. So the next time you see a young photo of yourself, don't put it away, or don't just go, oh, I was cute. It's time to reflect of that time to now. How is your journey going? How is your journey? Do you have a good journey? Because before you know it, we're gonna be that tutu, and that Mōpuna are gonna come to you and gonna call you, oh, that's my tutu heebie-jeebies. He always like to talk about the heebie-jeebie things, because the Mōpunas are gonna be coming real soon. Next photo, please. Oh,
this is
okay, take it away.
This is our family in 2015. So get my dad in the middle. My mom is on his left. There's a whole bunch of people. My mother-in-law is on my dad's right side. My wife, Sunny, is right behind my dad. So we're a blended family. And, this wasn't our first rodeo, if you can say.
Yeah.
So from my wife's backside on her right, her son, her youngest daughter, her middle daughter, and the eldest daughter. The gentleman in the back, the taller one, is her nephew. My wife's eldest is holding her baby, and she's such a cutie. So she's gonna puka from Punana Ohana in June. So we'll be shooting over to Maui again in June. Likewise in.
So I'm looking at this photo.
Yes.
I'm looking at this photo, and so your teacher. So the world of uhi and all those terms that define that, tatau, very prevalent. It was a way of communication. It was a way of keeping people focused. And then it went to sleep because it was time to go to sleep. For whatever reason, it went to sleep. And then in the 80s, somebody began to wake it up. And then you were part of those early years of waking up. And then before you know it, your family all had pieces to contributing to the waking up. And now it's happening here. Now you have I'm looking at your family, and what role?
Far left.
What role do they play? Do they play in what? Do they have how do they intersect with this world of uhi?
We all sit together. Whether it's
what does that mean?
In doing the work.
Okay.
Keone always taught that it's the men would draw the blood, but women could be there and assist. My wife stretches, our girls stretch. My I don't know how you say it, stepson, Kupono, he hasn't sat in that space, and I really wish he would, but maybe not right now. It's not for him. The interesting thing is from their dad's side of the family, where I get the same genealogy, but don't tell them, Ben.
Cousins. Hi,
Yeah.
cousins, all cousins. Uncle, daddy, cousin.
So
Yeah.
I have my wife and her mom and her 4 kids. Behind is the nephew. To the backside of me is my brother-in-law's daughter, and then another niece next to her, and then my immediate 3 girls. The family is larger, but not everybody is here in the picture. But in that essence, Kuivi Kahiki Mahina stretch with us, Sunny stretches, Keolani stretches, Kaleola stretches. The oldest two, my wife's eldest two, haven't really been in that position yet. You know, our family is in Kenai, that side of our family. So we've gone over there and done work with them and on them and whatnot. But it just hasn't worked out where everybody kind of lines up. All the pieces don't come together, that we just, sit together and do the work together.
So, yeah, what would be interesting is 20 years from now, see where the next steps go, because sometimes rationally we have an idea we'd like for it to go this way, but we never know those ancestral currents. You never know. Sometimes it's the renegade kid that just no pay attention, that something happens and they just become the one, and so I love to see how sometimes these forces work, where everybody matters, everybody's contributing to each other's, but I'm looking at these, when I'm going to be a really old man, which one of these people, gonna they're gonna come and say, oh yeah, my dad is so and so, and I now inherited some of his work. I have his sexy tools. And next photo, please.
This is just an example of work. And this is one of our friends. She's a surfer. She plays music. She wanted something. She wasn't sure what she wanted. So we talked about different things. And we came off of this idea coming up more above, not so much on the Vayu, but more of the Umoma area, but not yet quite like an Iwilei, being a lay up in the bone area. Yeah. So this is just an example of something. I figure I'd throw it in.
Yeah, I know a question that a number of people, it's natural to this kind of discussion. What is your selection process for working or not working with certain opportunities? I'm not going to even say people, but sometimes opportunities. Can you take it away?
I love that question. I love that question because we have people that are Kanaka and look Kanaka and have beautiful genealogies or not, doesn't matter. To me, they're all beautiful. But the idea is they've not been groomed or have an understanding of how to enter into a conversation, how to enter into a space where you're asking something, you want something, but they don't know how to enter into that. So humility is huge. Yeah, just in so many layers to annoy is not just a now. It's just not a question. It's you're asking for something because you really want something, and so just entering into that space is really, really important. And if somebody comes out and they're really harsh, oh yeah, bro, Hawaiian, I want this, I want that, yeah, blah blah blah. It's like, oh, okay. First question: do you have foundational work? Oh, you don't. Oh, you don't know what that is. Well, let's talk about that, and then hold a conversation. Yeah, but I want to do my chest and shoulder. I hunt, I fish, bro. I Hawaiian. I'm like, I hate to knock it to them, but we all did this in the old days, right? We all hunted, we all fished, we all had to grow and mahi things, and you name it. But you work, and that's your passion. because you're not contributing to society if you're just hunting or fishing, unless you're teaching the art of hunting or fishing and the skills and the ability to kilo everything that you need to spot the trail or to understand the moon and the effect of the Kaiemi, Kainui, how this goes, what's the flow, the owl, is it coming or going?
You nailed it. For
Yeah.
us, when we define indigenous leadership and how is it different from other forms of leadership, it always comes down to that. At the end of the day, did you contribute to someone's well-being? Did the decisions you make contribute to someone's well-being? Did you teach something to someone today? Were you kind? If you had to reprimand someone, did you do it with care, or is it deliberately to hurt one? But yeah, that is an important, we have to deal with that attitude all the time. And part of it is just a decolonization. We're thrilled that they're coming to the cultural presentations, but also it does come with some groundwork. And so that's an important, but you just nailed it when you said, you might be a hunter, but are you teaching people to hunt? That's where we're taking this. Next photo.
Oh, kind of stern look, yeah, that face. Can you see the eyebrow and that nose, that lip line?
Mm-hmm.
Little bit something there, bro. In that look, I mean, I don't have that boxiness, but I have a small eye line and nose line. My mom's second brother has very much that, and I look a lot like him also. But it's an idea. This man was born from juicy genealogy, but he was born in 1828. We were already introduced to Christianity. And because of that, he did not go on and keep family things. He became a judge for South Kona. He graduated from Lahaina Luna. So it's just that idea. It's it's just the idea that he was the son of a Kahuna Nui. He was the son of a practicing priest, a mo'o of Kane, that carved skin. And he was taught, but he didn't keep it alive because he went the route of politics, the route of ali'i line. He followed that side of things. So you see in his name right there, Mōkaulele. Now, Mōkaulele comes from the Naihe side. When you look at some of the different parts of our lineage, that comes down with Kame'iamoku. And now just sister's name went out my brain. Holy cow. Oh my gosh. Wow. It went bye-bye. It's the start of the Kalakaua lines from Keawe Ahiunu and Ululani. It's their daughter. Kamehameha went with her. They got married, but they never had a baby. But Kamehameha's right-hand man was also part of our lineage, Kame'iamoku, and he had a baby with her. And so, that was the start of that Keliʻiokalani line. But he has Kalakaua ribbons and stuff. What do you call the stuff? That nani stuff on his chest, because he sat with Kalakaua also on that ahali'i, and he was part of a group where Kalakaua was bringing all of these people of learned things from all the different moku, or the pai aina, the pai moku, and give information, insight. What did your family do? What do you know? Boom. It was being all taken down. Incidentally, we know the guy who actually set fire to the palace that burned that room. That was the keeper of all that knowledge. Can you imagine if that haole never burned that room, how much ike we would have? We have people we're talking Kuaina, you know what I mean? The Kupa, Kaupo. Kaupo was so heavily populated from the early days. We're talking the ancient days. And we know that Keliʻiokalani shifted his kingdom from Wailuku over Pihana to over there just past Nu'u in Kaupo, heavily populated, heavily agriculture. You go through there now, there ain't nothing, bro. You look like tumbleweed over there. All the cattle went rape everything. That no more forest anymore. This place is heavily forest, heavily populated. And he was part of that council where they brought people together and they gave insight. I really wish he would have kept his father's tradition, but he had other things. But we still have some of his letters and correspondence with Kalakaua and Keliʻiokalani. And with Lili'u, he was warning her that there was conspirators and whatnot. And it was Stevens or Stevenson. What are the holy guys that was part of the overthrow that commented? So this is my 5th generation great grandfather, died in 1893. One of the conspirators for the overthrow commented in the newspaper how odd it was to have this Kanaka that had over 60,000 acres of aina throughout the Pai Aina. And he was something else. But he was a businessman. And he did things to increase business. You know, Kupa Landing everybody knows the song Kupa Landing. It was a pier in Ho'okena. He paid for that, and Cooper was the haole that came and made it. Incidentally, when we look at Cooper family and who it was tied to, is actually tied into cousins of my wife's family that went to Hana and Hamakua and Hana side. And that falls in line with the Trask family. So it's really, really interesting, you know, seeing some of these different people and the stories of Mōkaulele Latai. Go ahead.
Next photo, please. Okay. Can you tell us about, tell us about this. How did this come about?
This guy was a luau show dancer, Polynesian Review, whatnot. Great guy. He does all kinds of different things, but he's a show dancer. And he'll do the weaving for like the coconut hats, whatnot, baskets. Really akamai. Him and his wahine, very akamai. But he had done this giant he'e that went up his leg, wrapped on his back, on his body. And he was like, I want to get something traditional. Can I? Is there room? And I go, well, send me a picture of what you got. And he sent me the picture. And I was just like, oh, wow. But it was, we could do it. And what I did was something that our kumu showed us. Draw it through and do it up to and jump over as if one was layered upon the other. And in doing so, we kept the continuity and the flow of this patterning so that you couldn't tell. You know what I mean? That it's not you did here and then you jumped and completely started fresh here. You continued off wherever it ended. So this is, I wanted to show something that was somewhat contemporary. So by right and by nature, I'm a traditionalist, and I don't like change. I don't like modern things or becoming contemporary. It's a hard line for me. It really is. I struggle with that. But at the same time, I know it needs to change or maybe mutate or grow, right? It's about growth because we always grow. Nothing is stagnant. Nothing remained the same throughout the ages. And we've incorporated new things. So the idea was, okay, we could do work. And this is what I would do, something that Kumu showed. And so I just took that concept and I did this type of work. But it ties to
what I like about this and what I'm able to transfer this into the coursework that I have to do or the transformative work is that, you have the original, the first design that went on, and you can add another one because there's a need to anchor, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to eradicate the first one, right? That because each reflects a period of our maturity, and often in this world of ours, when we go through hardships, sometimes we want to eradicate the memory of it instead of and granted that some hardships are extreme. And I'm just speaking in the general terms. Sometimes people just want to eradicate the memories, eradicate their bad experiences, eradicate the people that hurt them. And of course, some of those, like I said, this is real for some of our people and myself to some degree. But when I work with cord, and oftentimes people I want to buy that, I want to wear that, I want to feel so sexy because I too like sexy a'ahu. However, I say that, my eyes caught it, but I also have all my errors in it, and I rarely ever part with my work because there's all my errors in it, and I don't take the errors out because they become my teachers. That the errors are not something necessarily bad or ugly. They're actually quite important, and I got to keep them personally. I keep them because they remind me what not to do again. Because sometimes if I keep eradicating it and getting rid of it, I may and easily want to forget about it. I could be in that same situation again, and I do know that as fact because I come from family that is similar, that has that as a practice, but I also deal 30 years in the university system, and I see this in a lot of times the people that I work with, or the people that I have an opportunity to help transform their lives. And so this is a great, this is a great image to say that, started off with the whole tourist and the hey, grabbing them and everything, and then you put something in there to just anchor it, not to erase it, but to complement it. And maybe that's something we need to do. Look at how not to erase it, but how to just complement it. Next photo. Okay. So, I don't know.
Can you do me a favor? Can you do me a favor? Could you speak and give insight on what you're talking about by retaining things, bringing old things in, while I make a quick exit? I got that thing again where I did too much.
You just said, but wait. Who you call Kumu? Who are you calling Kumu? Because that's not me.
Sorry about
that. Okay. Alrighty.
I'll be fast.
Yeah, Hikino. Let me look. Can you end share so I can look at some of the faces that I'm speaking to? Okay. Maybe this is a good time for questions. Now, of course, I'm not going to answer any of the questions in his area, but he had to go Lua. So, do you have any questions about how we use the art in intersection with leadership in the university system or in families? What are some of our advances, or perhaps what are some of our struggles? Any of you have questions? Noel, can you help me? Where's my gallery view? Oh, there it is. Gallery, full screen. Oh, okay, gallery. Any of you have questions? Please don't be shy. We're not doing this so you can be shy. We're doing this so you can fall into conversation. Any questions? Yes, you are Leilani Di Mello. Aloha, Leilani Di Mello. What?
Aloha. Okay,
Hi.
Ninao, not so much a question, but a mana'o pertaining to the first time I was making my kihe, and I was in Kumule Aloha Kale Mamahu's class. And I was printing I'm very particular about when I do hana no eao, and it was my first time, and I wanted it to be awesome and reflect all our mana'o that we were charged with, including in our kapala. And then somewhere along the line, my print kind of changed because I miscounted or something or whatever it was. But when I brought it to Kumu and I explained, I had messed up. And she looked at me and she said, there are no mistakes. It's there for a reason. So you keep going with it. And that has always come every time I feel like I messed up on something, I reflect back on that mana'o. So it was very important. So I just wanted to say that about art.
I have, we talked about the hula world. You have some people that are just perfect dancers, front, center, boom. Then you have the perfect chanters, boom, boom. Then you have those that can do like the really Maya graphic work, they carve, look on me, and it just breathes. I wasn't one of those. In fact, I put my, sometimes I would like, when a teacher come close, I just keep moving my pa'u so she wouldn't her eyes wouldn't land on some of the details that, but it's interesting. What we see as errors sometimes, the outside world may never see it. Sometimes we are our own we critique ourselves, especially if we're, which informs us. Maybe we can take that question. Makua, has there ever been, not using the word error, but how does, perhaps with you or what you've seen, how do they mitigate? Sometimes the idea is going this way, this is the plan, but then something happens and the moli starts to move. What does the person behind it moli, what do they do? Do they make the line thicker, or they just, now it's a curve? Because there's no error in it. What do you call it, and how do you mitigate it in this world of yours?
I don't know if there's an actual term for that other than, oh, man, I can fix that. Right? You're just like, oh, nah. Hey, sorry.
Go get some more skin. No worry, your uha's. Good thing your uha big. I get plenty of room.
Give them that. Hey, we can cover this.
Okay.
Yeah, no, honestly, I've done things where we drew it up. We used a pen and we drew it up, and we did a great portion of that pattern. At a certain point, I've done it where I just deviate completely, and I never remark, I never draw nothing. I just change the whole thing, and I don't know how I did it or how I do it. I can't express that. I think it's an understanding that I'm trusting something. Kumu always said, trust the tools, trust in the process. I've always had a hard time in trusting things, or if it's out of my hands, how am I going to trust that? Because I know what I can do and what I can control or not control. So to trust other things or other people, sometimes it's like, whoa, I've been rained on plenty along my journey. And I look at people sometimes with a cynical look. So when it comes to just trusting a process or whatnot, I don't know, because I give you one good one. Oh my gosh. There was people in the exact vicinity when we were doing the work. They were part of the people that were here for. When I was doing the work, the conversation distracted me, and I made a line that was like, I just stopped. And I just looked at it, and I scratched my head. I said, I'll be right back. I grab water, I drink water, come back, look at it, scratch my head again, sit down, and just didn't even touch it. I just ignored it and kept going. And then afterwards I went back and I made little push-pull to alter it. And nobody knew that I messed up. Or nobody knew that I actually made a line that wasn't where it was supposed to be. That's one case. Another case, I did one where I was like, okay, so we're gonna do this other pattern that kind of looks like this pattern, but it changed up, and here's the relevancy. The other pattern was really, there was a pilina, so it's easy to shift for me in that. But Kumu always said, you can't allow anything to get in your mind. And so those were like earlier days. It's been quite a while since I've had anything like that ever happen. Lately, let me knock on wood here. Oh boy, maybe I'm inviting trouble.
So, in the hula world, and actually a good, we need to have a technique of recovery, reboot, or, reboot. In all aspects, and it's in aspects of our culture, because as a chanter, we're trained to memorize and chant, and not just memorize words. A chanter is not just a person that pushes words. They have to the words is just creates a particular ambiance for the energies to flow. So at one part we've got to chant into a vulnerable space so that the gods can come through. Other than that, we're just chanting words. But the true essence of a chanter is to just put yourself in that vulnerable space so that the gods can come true. And sometimes in the middle of the chant, I get these creative bursts in my brain. I have this one deity, her name is Uli. I got to tell her, girl, only not on weekends, not on performances, not while I'm on stage, and not while I'm driving. It's like, don't send me this creative burst in my head, because sometimes in the middle of the chant, while I am in the zone, and we're training to chant on behalf of the Lahui, but there are moments when we're in the right spaces for creative juices to come in and images to come in. And so it's coming in, and you're having, in the middle of this one line, you're having like these discussions that are happening. The ancestors are beginning to discuss while you're busy chanting. And sometimes the words go a little askew because your thought process is to go somewhere else. Or sometimes you're on a stage and get too much lighting. I had a lot of lighting on me over those years, chanting on stage. And, so, they're nice, but they're distracting. And so sometimes we forget, but in chanting, there are devices that we use to recoup. And so sometimes we got to away from that line, and then we come back to it as exactly as what Makua is talking about. And we do it in hula all the time. Like Antinolani says, some of those hulas get 2 verses. So some of you third liners, you never make it the first. At least try to get them for the second repeat. The thing about the hula dancer is we're trained never to drop our hands, never to stop dancing. You keep moving, even if your costuming is falling off. You keep moving. Now, how valuable is that in academia or in any pursuit of life? That there might be a glitch. So what you're going to do, you're going to stop the whole movement. That's really up to you. I'm hoping you're not subscribing to my way. You got to figure out your way. Or you just walk away, have a couple of drink of water, come back, and then continue, and then come back, and then maybe that line does it. And with a little, this is uanani. Yeah. That's something very, and in hula, one of the worst things that you can do is we all falter in hula. There are times when we falter, but when we stop and we just stop. Because when we stop, when we're as a chanter, when we're chanting for the Lahui, and either we never focus enough, or the wrong chant, wrong time, wrong ambiance, that can wreak a lot of havoc on people's spirit. Because as a chanter, you're supposed to reflect perfection, because that's what motivates, that's what creates, that's what inspires. And when what we're reflecting is fear, then that doesn't go well. Yeah, you're gonna find yourself a van driver. You're gonna turn into a van driver. We're not kicking you out of the halal, because you can still drive the van good, but you're not dancing again. I've been in a situation where this one student a teacher and a student was chanting, and they were doing a kahua hoa, and the student went falter. And it's easy. You just eat through and then come back and you begin that line again. We all do it. But what they did, they put their head down and they looked, and they gave the impression like the error was not with them. That person was never asked to chant again. Luckily, she was a beautiful dancer. So she kept on dancing. So, the idea is not dropping the moli, not dropping it. Walk away from it if you have to. If the ohe kapala, you just keep going. Yeah, it is what you call it. Do we have any more questions? Oh my Lord, this is just going on. I just love this. I mean, the blood from the okay. Beautiful. The 13. This is so interesting. Okay, it was good. Maybe can we show one more photo and then we can call it and we can come to a closure, because this is a great discussion, because look at all of you guys. This is still get 60 people. Still over here. This thing went a long time ago. So good you stay.
So much to talk about, Tongoro. It's crazy.
I tell you,
Sin or that, or experiences, yeah. Where I was like, oh well, nah, we're good. Fake it.
we're good. Yeah.
I've had those experiences where, and I do just working down the leg, doing an alaniho. 3/4 of the leg is done, and I look and I realize that I'm at the bottom, but I don't remember doing the rest of the leg. But I watched myself do the work, and I've had plenty of times like that. So,
you go right in a zone. Yeah, right in that zone.
You gotta be in that space, but really, you gotta be in that space for whatever you do. Doesn't matter if it's for what I do, or for chanting, or for hula, for picking the la'au to help to bring upon healing for somebody. You need to be able to go to that. You need to know how to tap into that. And it's interesting that when I get going, sometimes I just catch in a rhythm, and then it just opens up, and it's just it's music. But what we hear in the vibration, in the sound, in the different hertz and megahertz and kilohertz and hertz and everything hurts. I don't know, whatever. You know what I mean? Sound stuffs, right? The baga grab you, and that's part of chanting. It grabs you. It taps right to the uhane. It gets right into the spirit. And
sometimes, sometimes I mean that, I'm chanting and I've just reached this particular, this quality of ii, and I'm like giving myself a stroke because it's so good. I I put myself in a trance. I like to be, it's jokey, but there's a truth to it, that there's a particular point you get into where you rise away from that space, and you're experiencing from a different sensation. And in fact, I had to train my own hula. The people that I decided to move into kumu hula, train to kumu hula, they were trained to pay attention and to be very sensitive when I'm in my space. Because sometimes when I'm in the peak of that chant or the peak of that dance, I'm going to go in another direction. And so their job is they'll and I'll leave the chant, and then they'll begin to chant. And then when I come back, then they'll pull away. So I had to teach my students that I'm not forgetting. I'm doing exactly as I'm supposed to do. This chant is meant to take me spaces, to make me journey in a little bit of time. And so between verse 1 and verse 2, you got to fill in the lines if it appears that I'm missing in action. But Leilani, your piece is an important piece, and you asked about you did your ohe kapala and stuff. It triggers something, and then you talked about Makua. You talk about your family that's stretching, and I saw that you had a little halau when you watched the video. Now in hula, because I'm a conservative, believe it or not. I really like to, within the world of conservatism, I find a lot of spaces to create. And then there's one occasion once in a while, I like to be very innovative, but I like to be innovative within context, and that's just the way I'm designed. But I'm also very picky with whom I work with. So I have different layers, the entry level, aloha to everybody. And then if you really want to work with me, you got to be a certain kind of quality and character. Yeah. And ethnicity doesn't have a place in it. It goes beyond ethnicity, in certain situations. But and so the people that I choose to work with, and this is what is important with the academic world, is sometimes the choice of community that we hang with. The one you live with, no more too much room for new wiggle space. You got to accept that. But the one you choose to socialize with, how do they affect the outcomes of your day? Have they advanced your energy, or have they depleted your energy? because that's one of the things that's holding back a lot of our students. They come in, they get the financial aid, they get the nice shoes, they get the nice car, they get all the classes, they get all the devices, and they get the wrong choice. When I say wrong, the canoe not moving. You know, it's like canoe world. Yeah, you can tell you get the right team together, that canoe just glides over the water. So what do you look at? What do you require when people sit in that room with you? You called it stretch, or maybe there's some other stuff but what are the quality? Who do you like to hang with, or who do you allow to hang with you? Because you're highly sensitive. That the little bit I know of you, I know that is it. And so what the outside world will enter into you near immediately. So you have to control that space. So what are some of those controlling features? What do you filter in? What do you filter out from your space?
I have a hard time with that, honestly, because I'm very welcoming. I get plenty of aloha. I aloha everybody. See somebody on the street, I hug them. Hey, nice to see you. It's been a long time. I'm giving hugs right and left, right? That's just me. I'm gonna shake your head, slap your back, give you a big squeeze, whatever it is. And so because of that, kind of tend to draw people in, I guess. But what I need is not that. Really, I do. I need just the opposite of that. And the idea is I certain energies I can't vibe with. But okay, so we're right inside the hale, and right over is the doorway, the sliding door to go out into the pa, if you will. It's a covered deck that's screened in. And when I go in that space, I don't want a lot of chatter. I don't want a lot of loud people. If I'm sitting with you and we can vibe off the same music, we're gonna turn it on. Got the little Bluetooth hook up to your phone, and hey, put on your list what you like to play. I want you to be comfortable. If it's screaming guitar, I'm gonna like, bro, time out. I cannot. That's not my trip. I love old days Hawaiian music. When I say old days, I'm talking 70s, 60s, going into that 50s stuff. I like that old day stuff. That's the stuff that I was raised up with, right? So I love that. And I love this transition into the 70s when we get Kalapana and C&K and whatnot. But I like that era, that old stuff. I absolutely love Fat Freddy's Drop from New Zealand. I'll vibe out with those guys. Reggae, bluesy, certain things. Some things I cannot go too much Hawaiian music if everybody in my space is falling asleep. If my stretcher, that kako'o, that ho'omalo'o, you name it. There's all these different qualifying terms for the physically doing that work. But if they're going down, I see their energy going down, okay, change up the play mix. If people on the side, nervous chatter or just talking, the individual I'm working on just keeps looking like, hey, what does it take to get you to settle and to mellow into this space? Because if you can't do that, I can't do the work. And I'm not gonna fight an individual to do the work. I'll just stop. And I've done that before, like, sorry, you can't handle this. You asked for this, but you can't. I gotta stop. You're breaking my tools because you're moving a lot and jumping around. So many different things come into play with that. Having just the right amount of people and not too many people. Having people that you vibe with. Absolutely. Have people that have an understanding of space and energy. Yeah, I could give all kinds of crazy examples, but it's about respect. And when we look at aloha, that's another term for respect. But it's people need to have respect and that humility when they enter into this space. And one huge idea that I didn't bring up that I don't know if a lot of people realize, we're the only ones that can shed everybody in Hawaii's blood without being put to death. Think about that. That's major. We tattooed all the Ali'i Nui and the Kahuna Nui and the warriors and you name it. All these different people of different pai or kulana. And And we could do so because we're instilling mana into these people. It's not my mana. It doesn't come from me. We're taught that it flows through us. So I need to be in my space, if you will, so I could tap into things and be that haka, for that
Be that
flow. But
that word haka is something that we use in our family here, and and in hula, and in the stuff that we do, to be the medium. I like that you said people have to be respectful. What I have found, however, now that I'm growing up, when I was young, it seemed like everybody in my world had an understanding of what respect was. They had a common definition and agreement with what respect was. But as I started getting older, there's the generations, I found that generations define respect really, really differently. And in my days, we would never think to come into a room if the tutu is sitting down and talk to the tutu or standing up. We need to bend down and talk to the tutu. We would never think when the tutu is walking away to talk at the tutu from the back. You always come to the front. We never thought, there's, and then I remember some of the struggles that I had to do as a young kumu hula with Hawaiian students who loved me and who loved hula, would never compromise. But this idea of respect was interesting, because there was a time when we'd be traveling and they all grab their things and they're off and they leave me with my pahu and everything. And then on top of it, the staging all in my, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to kill these people. Like, how do you, and then it made me realize that my teachers, I may have had an understanding of what respect was in my home. Outside of my home, I needed my community to teach me the different forms and levels of respect pertinent to that situation. And so I remember then I had to reflect that my teachers, I may have been a proficient dancer and chanter, but off stage, I was dizzy as heck. I could easily get lost. I could navigate the mythical worlds. I could go to the stars and back, and I can have all these discussions but give me a straight road, and I still tell you I can take the wrong turn when there is no turn and figure out, but I'm still confident. But I had to figure out how to teach respect, because generations define respect differently. Some of the terminology my kids use today, I have to hyperventilate, because that's not the kind, in fact, we even use those things, would be on niho ole, would be the best chanta, no mo tit, everything is sounding very kahito. Okay. But this, so I found that one of the things that I had to, and I had to mature into as a teacher, is that I couldn't neglect teaching them respect, however I define respect, because of being that haka. My role is to bridge them to the ancestors and the ancestors to them. And the respect is not about me. It's about the service that I do and the people and the connection. And when I realized that, is your attitude keeping me from my service? I got to get you out. I don't care how good you are on that stage. I don't have room for divas. I don't have time for that. We have a bigger calling. We have a different kind of a calling. And maybe this is not your calling. You're a lovely dancer, but maybe you might need to go to somewhere else. And so respect is an interesting thing, because that is also huge. It's just huge. People will, people will. And I tell my students, what you do on stage, tells one thing, but I rather look what's going on backstage. Backstage will tell me not how you respect each other, but how you respect that realm, that knowledge system, And so I needed to inquire into a little bit, how, because you are drawing blood, people are trusting you. So how do you navigate? How do you create that appropriate space so that you can do what you do without compromise? So thank you for sharing that. That's an important piece for our students, because our students, they want to throw everything on the canoe. and then take 21 credits. And then, party on weekends. They don't know that when you start the journey, there's, if Hi'iaka had to give up Hopoi, what are you giving up? You have to exchange. There's always an exchange if you want to complete the journey. So can I ask the last question? What is your exchange? What did you have to exchange for all of this, if there was any?
Oh, that was a good one. Really, my family. I gave up my family for this.
Can you say that again?
It's emotional.
I gave up my family
It's
for this
emotional.
practice. Does that make sense?
I think I'm gonna need to sit with that for a while, because that is a little because that's a huge sacrifice. And I think what you're saying is very reflective of what I never put voice to. That there is a give up. There is to serve at this level of service. There's something that has to be exchanged, and we have to give it up, or else it will be taken. We have to offer it, or else it will be taken. So, wow, I hope I didn't kill your buzz. So sorry.
No, not at
But-
all, not at all. I'm
But
very I'm very sensitive. But the idea is, I gave up my family. I gave up my family time. There was times that I traveled with Keone that we had to take different airplane. And the idea was, he's the keeper of the knowledge, and I was learning it. If we're together and that plane goes down, there's no more knowledge keepers. You know what I mean? So in that sense, I put my family on the side to learn this tradition and to try and build it. And I'm still trying to build it and get large now. He woke up the tradition. I'm the first generation out of the gates. And with that idea, there's so much that we don't have, or we need to get better at, or we need to be including in. But that idea was, I had to give up family time. I had to give up. My kids sat on the side. I brought coloring books and toys, and I made little lunchbox cooler where we ended up getting doing work out of a community center and in Nanakuli. And so I bring the kids and they sit on the side and they, Papa, when are we going beach? Papa, when are you pau? Papa never here pau. And I'm just like, Paimao, we're not pau yet. And we're almost done. And then somebody else walks in and Kumu says, yeah, we'll do them. And my day just got into dark time, from morning to dark. And my kids wondering, Papa, you said we're going to swim. You said we're this, so I became a liar on many, many different occasions because I couldn't uphold something that I thought that we could. I sacrificed my family. Absolutely. And this practice is so infantile right now. This practice is bigger than any single individual in the Pai'aina. And if it was for me to sacrifice my life, my olakino, whatever it is, then so be it, because this needs to live and needs to grow. And it needs to be for all of Hawaii and our people. If you look at it, everybody knew what these different symbols were. From old days, everybody knew. It was common knowledge. It was a writing that everybody could understand and perceive. It's not that way right now. But maybe in 2 to 3 generations, it will be. And people will see that and say, oh, that's Keli'i's family over there. Yeah, I can tell by such and such marks. Or who knows. But it's the idea that our people can stand up again and be recognized as Kanaka Hawaii, Oiwi Hawaii. Because this idea, you look at Tongans, and you see the peka that encapsulates their body, and it's heavy blackened. The Samoan version, the pea, is very similar but lighter, not as much dark. You could recognize those guys like this. You could recognize, Kanaka Maohi from, say, Hivaoa, from their markings. People don't remember what Hawaiians look like. And look at me, I'm half breed. I don't look Hawaiian, right? In that idea, you could be recognized by your markings. That's what we did in the old days. And we would ho'omana somebody with something that they're lacking, or maybe we're speaking on something that they have. So this idea, what I give up, I do it in the next life. If it means,
when we
are stronger, I would do it for that.
And that's,
I drink you.
So when Ka'ahumanu was getting her tongue tattooed, because her husband Kamehameha died, and it was part of her grieving, and somebody asked her, "Doesn't that hurt?" And she said, "The loss of my love hurts much greater than this," which is a cold reality that everything we have today, somebody left it for us. Whether in the books or in the stories, they may have left the whole fish. Sometimes they only leave the peva, and we got to rebuild the whole fish from just the peva. There's a lot of guessing. There's a lot of testing. When you wake up something, a little bit groggy in the beginning, and then a baby has to crawl and stumble and fall, and then it picks up its pace, and then it begins its journey. There's a lot of sacrifice. Coming to school is a huge sacrifice. When Hi'iaka went on her journey, she put her whole life, her social life with Hopoi, on the back burner. And there was actually no coming back to it, because when she thought Hopoi would be waiting, Hopoi was Pau. That time of her life of Hopoi was Pau. She needed to step into her deity. And so, when people come to school, we want them to see it. Sometimes it's not enough for them to see it in the American Eurocentric terms. I'm going to get a degree 3 years, 15 to graduate, all of those things we get. But really put it in the context of Hawaii, that these are stepping stones. And yes, there are sacrifices, and we're not talking tuition, the sacrifice of time, the sacrifice of attention. And especially if you have children and you have partners, that's not an easy thing to do. But it gets done. And when we look at all the leaders that we have worldwide, they have something great in common: a huge sacrifice behind their service, a huge sacrifice behind their service. So that's what it takes sometimes. So some people will be, some people are designed to just ride on the journey of other people, and that's fine. It's fine. The canoe is big enough, so long you can paddle, that's good. And then some people, they have to, they set the pace for the family. They become the leaders, and they take the punches. Yeah, they take the bruises. And sometimes you quit, but you just don't. And sometimes, it's not good when you look at, you've disappointed your own children. Yeah, that's a hard thing.
Absolutely.
But in the greater context, we might always want to look at the immediate and the greater. And again, I'm not making a judgment. That's all up to you. Keli'i, this is the first time we're actually having a conversation. And, I feel like I know you for, there's you've said a lot of things that and my wife is right there. And she knows, she's probably thinking, oh my Lord, you guys have things in common. We sure do. And I believe there are more people like us on this panel that have time, but we don't have the space to share this voice, to talk stories. We always talk, data systems and all these kind of mechanics, and those are important. They're not bad. But we've been telling stories since the beginning of time. And so talk about infantile, all this technology is infantile. We're still in the beginning stages of it all. Let's grow it. It's not a bad thing, but let's not forget that we have ways of communicating. There's different levels of literacy, and the literacy of Tatau, that in 20 years our people will be able to go and look, and by just the glance of it, they're going to be able to tell people's families, people's service to community. That's something worth sacrificing for. And that when our cousins see us, they know exactly where we're from. The eyes might be blue, the skin might be white, the hair might be pink, but that uhi will inform them at a glance, without a doubt, to whom and to where our loyalties lay and our primary connection. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to our Mahu clan out there, we want to say mahalo anui for sharing your long evening. And yes, you're welcome. You've lost 5 pounds because of a delayed dinner. It's part of the Mōkaulele tuition-free experience that we'd like to offer you once a week. But I really hope you have an opportunity to take a long shower tonight or a bath and think about your story. Or go, if you're lucky to have a beach, get in that water. Think about your story. Who's your daddy? Who's your mommy? Who's your tutus? And who are those people that ask you, well, who are you? What gives you the right? Why are you doing that? You can get punished for doing that. Nobody stands behind you. And all of those one-time difficult people, say thank you to them. To that horrible math teacher that made you take college algebra 4 times. You wish that she would never have grandchildren because she just flunked you. Time to switch that curse around and give her a blessing and say, thank you. You've challenged me, and because of you, I graduated. So, yes, bless the people that support us, that gave us the hugs. And all those mamas, I'm a mama's boy, I'm a grandma's boy. Oh my Lord. And no, I was not a hunter. I was not a fisher. All I did was dance hula. That's why I'm a vegetarian. I don't know if we eat. I don't know. Yeah. If you saw how I scare pigs away, one day I'll tell you that story of how I protect my family when we're in the forest and there's pigs. There's a certain thing I do, but that's just for the sacred Mōkaulele group, which you might be invited to. But I want to say mahalo again to Sunny, your wife. Because of her strength and her genealogy, she can contribute to what you need to do on behalf of the Lahui. I want to say mahalo to your children and the grandchildren that will be coming from them, because their tutu may have not taken them to the beach as often as they want, but their tutu would have been 20 years removed from now. They would see exactly what their tutu has done. And who knows, they might be the next one with that sexy moli in their hand. I want to say mahalo to Gail Makua in London, who's been doing this kind of work, talk about visionary and taking the punches, and having to deal with not just fighting the foreign mindsets in the university system, but sometimes fighting our own Hawaiian colonized mindsets. Yeah, we gotta do it. Fighting the foreigner is an easy thing. Fighting our own, no can fight. We just got to figure it out how. Yeah. I want to thank my wife. She's sitting in the next room because I wouldn't be able to have this conversation if it weren't for her spending many nights listening to my concerns, my whispers. You think the gods hear me? That's the kind of stuff I used to ask her. Do you think the gods hear me? And so that's why I can hold this conversation. That's a question. So is that a conversation we all have? Does the gods hear me? Do I have a voice? Do I have a purpose? What's my value?
That ties to this. Yeah. That's a whole nother conversation, brother. But this.
Oh, I tell you, tonight I'm going to sleep. I'm going to hear tick, 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 tick. I'm going to say, Makua, Mōkaulele power at it. Anyway, talk about Mōkaulele. Thank you for biting that hook. We threw that the chum out. Yeah, we'll throw that maunu out. You know, the story, the intrigue, the mystery behind kakao. But behind all of this, the purpose was so that you can see your own story through his story. Don't neglect your stories, please. Your children need them. Our children need your stories. I want to say good night to all of you. Good evening. And we'll meet again. You know, we have this Mangaya guy coming. I just only met him one time. I talk about taking risk. But he's a cousin. He's a cousin. Talk about taking a risk. I never spoke to a Mangaya. I thought I was talking to a Mari. Now he's a Mangaya. I think, oh, okay. I gotta figure out. Yeah, that's an inch. And then the Tangaroa is from there too. So it's like, yay, we have some connections. But bye-bye, everybody. But Sunny and Makua, can you stay on together with Gail and Noel and is Noel? But goodbye, everybody. Pass the message, have the conversation.